All right, so for today, I got my wide receiver rankings tiers for week one. I did want to point out I did these before the Cowboys-Eagles game yesterday, so hopefully, I guess now by the time you watch it, 2 days ago. Did want to notate one other big thing. I apologize for the delay. I want to do them earlier in the week, but I was kind of hemming and hawing if I was going to do these tiers for running backs and wide receivers for week one. So I was like, there's not enough information for me to feel confident in what I'm doing. But then I realized if you're new to fantasy football, I want to make sure I help you out, especially if you've recently subscribed. So I decided to do them a little bit late. Next week, it'll be a set schedule for the entire week for everything that I do, including waiver wire, including matchups and breakdowns that I think are going to be very, very helpful for everybody. Those will be on a set schedule going into week two and going forward. So without further ado, we're going to hop into my wide receiver rankings and tiers for week one. So starting off at number one, it is none other than Mr. Nico Collins over here. I did make another video. He is my wide receiver one. I predicted to finish as the wide receiver one on the year, so it doesn't hurt me to start him off in week one as the number one wide receiver. He's going up against the Rams. Their secondary is going to be maybe a little bit improved from last year. They didn't make any big additions. I think he's going to smash. I don't know if we're going to see Christian Kirk play this week, so it really could come down to Nico Collins, Jaden Higgins having smash games in week one. The Rams are going to score a lot of points. At number two, it is Jamar Chase. They're going up against the Browns. For the Browns, I don't know what the defense is going to look like, but Jamar Chase is going to be Jamar Chase, just like Nico Collins is going to be Nico Collins. Next for me, I have Brian Thomas Jr. I know that the Panthers' defense last year was horrible. I know their run defense was even worse than their pass defense, but I don't really trust Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby. I don't know what we're going to get, and there might be a little bit of shifting in week one and week two. So for week one, I think Brian Thomas is in a smash spot to finish as a top 5 wide receiver in week one. From there, it is going to be Justin Jefferson. I don't know exactly what we're going to see from, J.J. McCarthy in his first game, but if anybody's going to get targets, anybody's going to be the main focal point of this offense in week one, it should be Justin Jefferson. From there, I have CeeDee Lamb. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb already played this week. He had a good game. He obviously dropped a few passes in the end of that game. He could have finished with like 25 or 26 points and then some, but he did not, unfortunately. Next for me is going to be Drake London. The fun thing, too, so far, I haven't even had to look at who they're playing. I just remember, so I feel good about that. Thank God for that. Drake London is in a smash spot in week one. I think him and Michael Penix are going to pick up right where they finished off last season. Lots of targets for him. He's going up against a Bucs secondary that I don't think is very good, and I think he is going to absolutely smash. It wouldn't surprise me if he finished as the wide receiver one this week, but I have a little bit more confidence in the matchups for everybody else before him, but he's obviously going to easily be a top 6 wide receiver this week in fantasy football. Next for me, unfortunately, and again, truther, is A.J. Brown. The dude's a top 10 receiver in the NFL. The Eagles do not use him as such. Jalen Hurts doesn't even know he's on the same team. Apparently, A.J. Brown is going to eventually have pop-off weeks when they have to actually pass the ball. It may be like last year where I have to accept the reality that A.J. Brown is going to have lots of good weeks and lots of bad weeks, and it's just going to kind of be a weird hodgepodge. We'll see, though. It was week one. Don't want to overreact, so we'll see what happens in week two. Next for me is Malik Neighbors. I am anticipating that the secondary for the Commanders should be a little bit better this season. He is coming off of 19,000 injuries in the preseason, so it'll be interesting to see how he plays and how his injuries hold up and how his body holds up. That I want to know is that, again, have to start, should start, could start. They're probably going to start the vast majority of them anyways because they are people that you drafted to start almost every week. This will be a lot more viable and useful when we get into bye weeks, and then these rankings and tiers will actually matter more because then it really matters who you're starting and who's you have ranked where. So it'll matter more as we get farther into the season, and I'll be more correct as we get more information on these defensive matchups and how these players are actually being used and what kind of scheme they're running this year for 2025/2026. Next for me is Amon-Ra St. Brown. I know a lot of people out there projecting him to do a lot worse in week one. I do not understand why. He is still going to be the main focal point for this Lions offense, and he's a top 10 guy for me this week. Next is Lab McConkey, who did end up playing today. He is going to be a smash guy probably every single week. He looked really good, got lots of targets. He's going to probably pick up right where he left off last season and just keep on running it up throughout the year. The first person on my list who's probably a little spicy for everybody out there is Mike Evans. I know his corner matchup this week with the Falcons is going to be a little bit of a challenge, but basically it's him and Emeka Egbuka in the true passing game. So it's going to be Mike Evans and Emeka Egbuka who are going to have good weeks. I have Mike Evans a little bit higher because I anticipate seeing him have to step up in week 1. He could finish a little bit lower, but I have a lot of confidence for him and this Bucs offense against a decently subpar Falcons defense in week 1. Next for me is Puka Nacua. I know Puka Nacua is somebody I want to have higher on a weekly basis, but this Texans secondary is absolutely terrific. They are going to give fits to Matt Stafford when they are passing the football. So I have Puka here. I still have confidence in him to finish as a top 12 wide receiver in week 1, but it is going to be a struggle and a matchup thing throughout the entire game. Next for me, I have Terry McLaurin. If Terry had come back sooner, I'd have him in the have to start, tier. He's going to be in a smash spot. The Giants defense this year is actually going to be pretty good at stopping the run and getting to the quarterback, but thank God for Terry McLaurin. Jaden Daniels is a running quarterback, so that should keep Terry in a pretty high scoring position this week in week 1. Next for me is Ted McMillan for the Panthers. That secondary for the Jags is going to be okay this season. I think we're going to see a good chunk of Tech McMillan targets this game. I think he's going to get peppered by Bryce Young. He's probably going to be like the safety blanket for him. I don't think you move off Adam Thielen if you don't think Tech McMillan's the guy. Jalen Coker is down, so I just think that there's a real reality where Tech pops off in week 1. It is none other than T. Higgins. T. Higgins is going to do exactly what he did last season. I'm hoping he stays healthy for most of these games. If he does, he'll be a top 15 wide receiver pretty much every single week, regardless of the matchup. Next for me was going to be Xavier Worthy, who unfortunately in tonight's game, or now, when this video comes out, last night's game, got popped by Travis Kelce and probably has an AC joint sprain, and that's my guess at least. It could be a dislocated shoulder, who knows? But obviously, he did not perform as a should-start candidate because he never got to catch a ball. But what are you going to do? Have to monitor the injury situation going forward and have to see if there's somebody else on the Chiefs who's worth picking up. Kind of like who's Patrick Mahomes going to throw the ball to now. Next for me, I have Jerry Jeudy. I think Joe Flacco is going to be on a similar level to Jameis Winston, a little bit older version, doesn't have quite as much of the oomph on the ball, but I think Jerry Jeudy, David Njoku are going to be in smash spots this week. The run game for the Browns, I think, is going to be kind of subpar to start the season, so it means for Jerry Jeudy, David Njoku, the passing game is going to have to be on point with Joe Flacco. The other big thing, too, they're playing against the Bengals, horrible defense. I think you're going to see Jerry Jeudy pop off, and most people don't have him this high, but I have a lot of faith in Jerry Jeudy this coming week. The next person for me is going to be none other than JSN. When it comes to JSN with Sam Darnold, I don't really know what we're going to see out of the 49ers defense. I don't think their secondary is going to be very good this season. A lot of young players out there. JSN could be in a smash spot. I think you're also going to see Kenneth Walker in a smash spot. These two guys are going to be the focal points of the offense for Seattle, and I think that you're going to see a lot of targets to JSN in week 1. Next for me, I have Courtland Sutton. I probably should have Courtland Sutton a little bit higher considering the matchup this week. I don't think the Titans' pass defense is going to be very good. I don't know how much they're going to have to throw the ball. I think their defense is going to stop Cam Ward because it's his first game in the NFL. I think he's a great talent, but he has to go up against literally a top 3, if not the best defense in the NFL in week 1. So Courtland Sutton might not get that much usage only because they might just run the ball a lot because they probably won't have to pass very much because the Titans might not be able to score very many points at all. Next for me, I have DK Metcalf. He's obviously going to smash throughout the season. I think he's going to be back to form, healthy. This really comes down to Arthur Smith, what this offense is going to look like, and how well Aaron Rodgers plays throughout the season. Hopefully Aaron Rodgers, 100% healthy, looks like he did at the end of last season and smashes in week 1. So DK Metcalf can pop off. Next for me, I have DJ Moore. Is DJ Moore going to be the primary receiver? I think so. But there is a reality where it could end up being Rome Odunze, or it could be more of a focus on spreading the ball throughout multiple people. So it's kind of more of a hedge having him here. He could be a little bit earlier, could be a little bit later, but I wanted to kind of safely put him in the middle. Somebody that I do have dramatically lower than probably like consensus projections for week 1. Next person for me is Tyreek Hill. When it comes to Tyreek Hill, I just feel like I just don't know what we're going to see out of the Dolphins offense. I don't know if Tua is going to want to throw him the ball. I just don't know what we're going to see. So Tyreek Hill easily could be a top 10 receiver in week 1. He could prove me wrong this season, but we're going to find out after the first couple of weeks how much Tyreek Hill is going to be involved with the Dolphins offense. Next for me is going to be Jameson Williams. I think he's going to be in a smash spot. I think he's going to get more of a workload this season. That is why I don't have Amon-Ra as a top 5 guy this week, because I really am kind of, again, hedging on both of them. Amon-Ra is going to be a top 12 guy probably every single week, unless he has like a really, really down week, a couple of weeks he had like last year. But Jamo's going to be in a good spot to continually perform every single week throughout the season. Next for me on my list is Garrett Wilson. The Pittsburgh secondary is big question marks, especially with the trades they made recently. I don't know what we're going to get out of the secondary. I don't like the matchups he could potentially be facing, but I think with the number of targets he's going to get in week 1 especially, there's a real reality where he ends up finishing higher than where I have him, but this is a safe place for me to have him in my projections and my rankings. All these guys so far you have to start because you drafted them to start. Next for me is Devontae Adams. If they were not playing the Texans this week, I would have both of the Rams wide receivers dramatically higher in my rankings. But considering what we're going to see from the Texans in week 1, which I think is their best foot forward on defense, CJ Gardner-Johnson should be back. And the fact that I'm a little worried about Matt Stafford in week 1, I have Devontae a little bit lower than I probably would have had him if they were playing somebody else this coming week. Next for me, sad story, is none other than George Pickens. Again, truth. Had him higher. I thought he was going to pop off. I said for CeeDee Lamb, 110 yards would made me happy. He had 109, I believe, so I guess I got that one right. For George Pickens, I said 85 yards and a touchdown. He did not get anywhere close to that. Super unfortunate. I'm still hopeful that as the season goes along, he gets more and more usage and he gains more and more of Dak's trust as we go further into the season. Next for me on my list, a little bit higher than probably consensus, is Jacoby Myers. I believe Christian Gonzalez could miss this week. Again, I'm doing this before it's official. If he is out, that means that you're probably seeing him get the second best corner on the Patriots defense, or that could be shaded coverage to Brock Bowers from multiple people in the secondary. Either way, we split hairs. Jacoby Myers is probably going to have a pretty good game this coming week. It really comes down to Genty. If Genty gets 25 touches this game, 30 touches this game, something crazy and disgusting, then Jacoby Myers probably doesn't finish here. But if it's more of a balanced attack for the Raiders in week 1, which is what I'm projecting, obviously, Jacoby Myers will do just fine. So at this point in time, from Jacoby Myers on, we're in, like, if you're in a 3 wide receiver league, you're probably starting all of these guys so far and probably for the whole next tier as well. If you're in a 2 wide receiver league, you're probably putting one of these guys in your flex or a running back matchup that you really like, depending on who you have at your RB position. It really just depends. In week 1, I'm usually going to lean towards wide receiver because they're usually going to have more points in a PPR format. If you're in half PPR, you're probably looking for a juicy running back matchup. But in the case of everybody else from here on out, they're probably going in as a wide receiver 3 or more of a flex option for you. So the next for me is going to be Ricky Pearsall. I know Juwan Jennings might suit up this coming week, so Ricky might be in a spot where he doesn't get quite as many targets, but I still think that there's a reality where Ricky ends up being the wide receiver 1 on this football team starting in week 1. Next for me, I have to have a Ravens player in here because somebody has to catch the ball from Lamar Jackson, so I have Zay Flowers in the could start conversation. I could have him higher. I'm out on the wide receivers for the Ravens until somebody shows me that they want to be the number 1 target earner and the dominant wide receiver. If it's Zay Flowers, great. If it's Rashad Bateman, I need to pick him up off the waiver wire, great. We'll see what happens in week 1 and week 2. I'm not going to overreact. If Zay Flowers pops off in week 1 or Rashad pops off in week 1, I want to see what the usage looks like through the first couple of weeks before I start moving them up in my rankings. So next for me is going to be Stephon Diggs. I think he is going to easily be the wide receiver 1 on this football team, at least for the first half of the season. I think he's going to be the go-to guy. Last season, he was popping off with the Texans before his injury. He was on pace, less than 1 point difference from 2023 to 2024 before the injury. Next for me is Chris Olave. It's really hard for Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed because I don't know what Spencer Rattler is really going to look like now having Kellen Moore. I said last season Spencer Rattler was going to end up starting. This is before they drafted Tyler Shuck, so I guess it ended up working out that I was correct. Yay me. But we're really going to see what it looks like for Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed in week 1 and week 2. For me personally, I have my money on Rashid Shaheed emerging as the number one wide receiver that you're going to want to have from the Saints offense, but it could equally be as likely that it's a dumpster fire and you don't want anybody from the Saints. So I have Chris Olave here getting closer and closer to like a true wide receiver 3 in fantasy football based on my tiers for week 1. Next for me is Devontae Smith. Obviously didn't have the craziest performance that you would have hoped for considering how much AJ Brown wasn't used. Devontae Smith could be in the same blender that AJ Brown is going to be in throughout the season, where it's a lot of boom bust weeks. He'll have a lot of good weeks. He'll have some bad weeks, and those bad weeks are really going to hurt you. Next for me is going to be Calvin Ridley. If Calvin Ridley was not having to play against the Broncos in week 1, I would have him up dramatically in my ranking. He's going to be the number 1 target runner for the Titans throughout the entire season. I think he's going to smash in fantasy, but this first week matchup probably going to finish a little bit lower, unfortunately, only because of the matchups he's going to face. Patrick Surtain on the other side of the ball with the Broncos, but if he plays badly, he could be an easy trade candidate to buy low in week 2 or in between week 1 and week 2 because of how low he's probably going to perform in week 1. And you probably could scoop him up from somebody who's like, wait a minute, everybody told me he was going to pop off this year. Just keep that in the back of your minds as we move forward. The next person for me is going to be Jalen Waddle. The biggest thing for Jalen Waddle is he could emerge as the number 1 target runner from Tua. He could also be just like he was last year and kind of left by the wayside. We'll have to see what it looks like, but I can't move him much lower in my rankings because I think Jalen Waddle is a talented wide receiver, and we're not that far removed from Jalen Waddle having a 1,000-yard plus season a couple of years ago. So the next person for me was Juwan Jennings. Again, we'll see what he looks like in week 1. He could be dramatically higher, dramatically lower. It just depends on the usage and how healthy he is going into this matchup in week 1 against the Seahawks, whose defense I do believe is going to be pretty good this season as well. Next for me is Emeka Egbuka. I think he's a smash spot to put in as a flex candidate for you guys in week 1. Again, it's going to be Mike Evans and him on the football field as the 2 primary ball catchers in week 1 for the Bucks. You're going to have Mike Evans drawing the best corners, and you're going to have shaded probably coverage to Mike Evans, which means Emeka Egbuka has the potential to really break out literally in week 1, depending on how much they throw the ball for the Bucks in week 1. Next for me is going to be Matthew Golden. He's going to have a tough matchup against the Lions secondary in week 1. The Lions last year were shut down in the run defense and were doing pretty dang good in the pass defense as well. They're all healthy. I'm expecting Matthew Golden to do decent, but not be amazing in his first start with the Green Bay Packers. Much lower than everybody else will have him in their rankings. Next, I have Marvin Harrison Jr. For me, Marv is just not the number 1 target earner for the Cardinals. The other big thing we have to keep in mind, I think this is a smash game for both Kyler Murray and James Conner, maybe even Trey Benson, because the Saints are going to have a bottom 3 to bottom 5 run defense again, maybe the worst run defense in 2025 by my estimations. So what that means for me is there's going to be a lot of running of the football by the Cardinals. They're not going to have to pass the ball a lot. Next for me, I have Khalil Shakir. He's probably a little too low in my tiers and rankings, to be honest, but the injury makes me nervous. The matchup against the Ravens secondary makes me nervous. I'm just not sure what his usage is going to actually look like this season. He could end up being someone who pops off in week 1, week 2, and he immediately flies up my rankings as Josh Allen's favorite target. But on the flip side, he could do exactly what he did last year and kind of be a middling flex option for you, a bye week fill-in, depending on what the usage is going throughout the season. All right, so for the last few guys, because I hate making these videos so long, and I said in the running back videos, I don't want to make these that long. I would rather me run through these faster. If you guys want them to be longer, I can make them longer, but I like getting to the point and giving you the gist really, really quick. I'd rather go into the comments not saying you need to comment on my videos, but if you have a question between like a start set between 2 players or you're in between players and I didn't give you enough of an explanation, I'd rather answer those questions in the comments versus making these videos 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 50 minutes long. In my kind of flexi, I have Rashid Shaheed. Next is Keenan Allen. When it comes to Keenan Allen, obviously had a good week 1. We'll see what he looks like next week as well. There is a real reality where he ends up being a great number 2 or number 3 option for Justin Herbert. Jaden Reed, don't know if he's going to play. Josh Downs could be the number 1 target earner for the Colts. We don't know. It could be Colston Loveland. We're going to see what Danny Dimes looks like and who he wants to target in week 1. Next, I have Roma Dunze. I was underwhelmed in year 1. Loved the college tape. We'll see what he looks like, how much his usage is, and see who Caleb Williams favors in week 1. Next, I have Deebo Samuel. I think Deebo Samuel's kind of washed. I'm thinking it's going to be Terry McLaurin, Zach Ertz, a lot of Jaden Daniels, and that's what we're going to see throughout the season. We'll see what Deebo does. Maybe he'll surprise me. Next, I have Michael Pittman. Him and Josh Downs are very close because one of these guys is going to emerge as the wide receiver 1 on this football team. Next for me is Travis Hunter. I've been very vocal. I'm not super high on him at the wide receiver spot, but they obviously need a wide receiver 2 for the Jags. They're going up against the Panthers. Horrible defense. Probably have him a little bit too low too, but I got to be true to myself and have him a little bit lower, at least in week 1. Next, I have Jaden Higgins. I probably have him higher than a lot of people. I don't know. I don't check everybody else's stuff before I do my own. I think there's a real reality where Christian Kirk doesn't play, like I already said at the beginning. So Jaden Higgins could be the number 2 option for CJ Stroud in week 1. Next for me, I have Darnell Mooney. From there, I have Keon Coleman, Cooper Kupp, Xavier Legette, Cedric Tillman, and Rashad Bateman. All guys you're not starting no matter how deep your league is, because they're just not players you're going to want to start in week 1, because we're really not sure about the usage for all of these guys in week 1 and exactly how they're going to be used in their offense to boot. So there are all of my wide receiver rankings and tiers for week 1. I'm sorry I'm laughing because this is the longest video I've ever filmed, but it's a lot of names to obviously get through. If you made it this far, I greatly appreciate you for sticking with me, because I know it's a really long video. But at least if you skip to the end and you see the AJ Brown stuff and you get to this point where I'm talking, you know that I've kept people where I had them before the games actually started and I didn't adjust it. So at least I'm going to be honest with you as the season goes along. I can guarantee you these videos will be a little bit more put together as we go. This is my second attempt at doing a rankings and tiers video for the beginning of the season, and also they'll be more on point as we see usage trends, what the teams are going to look like for these offenses, and I'll have a better idea of how the defenses are going to perform against all the different positional groups as the season goes along. So hopefully this video helps you get just a little bit closer to winning your fantasy football championship this season in 2025. If you are looking for my RB tiers and rankings, that video will be somewhere around here for you guys to watch if you feel so inclined. It is a little bit shorter. It was my first attempt though, so don't judge me too much. Hopefully I'll see you guys again real soon. No, hopefully you guys will see me again real soon. And until then, y'all have a blessed day. Bye.